something that you can't really prepare for, no matter what you're trying to do to connect, and everything is just not quite the same. But I think our players are handling it well. They're in their classes, they're doing it all online. They're staying connected. We talk once a week, so we're doing as best we can. But I think this is just an unprecedented situation that none of us have ever really thought of happening or being possible. So we're all hanging in there.
Yeah, I can imagine it's pretty tough. Now, you started the job at Harvard in, I think, like August of 2018, right?
Right. Yeah. So last summer.
So last year was your first full year?
Yeah. So this was my second season.
Second season coming in, and you hit with a little adversity. So
yeah, exactly.
Hopefully, we all get past this, and the kids. But it's got to be tough on the seniors.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the seniors, it was just so unexpected, and luckily our administration was great in kind of preparing us for the discussions that were being had by the university president and the other Ivy, presidents and athletic directors, that they kind of took us through it like step by step. And so we were kind of preparing our players for, we might not have spectators was kind of the first step. Then they kind of postponed a game that we were supposed to have. And, that was kind of like the first telltale sign that something bigger was coming. And, I think, again, nobody wanted to have their season cut short. And I think they handled it gracefully. But I mean, yeah, there was a ton of tears, not just from them, but from us as a staff. And I felt like we were really starting to kind of hit our stride a little bit. And at the same time, it was a really special group of women. So we wanted to kind of hang out and be together more. So it just felt so bizarre to just kind of like say, okay, that was it. That's our last practice. And we did get the call like while we were at our last practice. So, it was painful, but I think, this is something they'll remember forever. And you kind of have to have that senior mentality of, hey, like, you never know when it's going to be your last game, or you never know when you're not going to get to play again. So I think it's got a lot of good lessons in it for everybody kind of moving forward.
I remember a story about Michael Jordan, the basketball player, and it was a great story that always stuck with me. Someone asked him a question one day. He said, "Why do you always play so hard in games?" And he said, "Because there's some kid sitting in the stands that came to see me, and this is the first time that they're seeing me, and it might be the last time that they see me, and I want them to see that I always go hard."
Yeah.
And that's how I always play. And one of your coworkers at Harvard, Jerry Burns, Jerry and I are really good friends. We grew up one town apart, went to the same high school, Chaminade High School, and Jerry's just a great guy. And one of the things he was talking about was, we always say, play like it's your last practice, play like your last game. He goes, not knowing that this really is our last practice.
Right.
This was our last game.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something to remember. And you use that in everything you do.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's good lessons to, be had from all of this, and good growing opportunities, but I mean, it stings. You can't deny it. So it stings for everybody. It's not just Division I. It's not just athletes. It's everybody right now.
So one thing that we do a little differently too with the Elevate Academy is I don't tell any of the panelists and guests what we're going to talk about, and everything's off the cuff, which I think just makes it more fun that way. So Devin has no idea what I'm going to ask her, and not that I'm going to ask her any ridiculous questions, but it's just fun questions. So, you had an unbelievable opportunity to help Lindsay Monday start a brand new program, literally from scratch. And you guys came onto the scene as a top D1 team at the University of Southern California, the Trojans, right away. What was that experience like?
I think it was an incredible experience. USC is a really special place. It's always going to be very near and dear to my heart. But, it's a place where they take athletics very, very seriously. So right there we had, some chips in our pocket that we could kind of say, you're going to come here and you're going to get treated really well. The kids that kind of bought into that and bought into the vision were a special group. Not everybody did, and not everybody, was willing to move all the way across the country, because the majority of our athletes were from the East Coast, and most of them were from Northern California, if not from the East Coast. So yeah, it was a leap of faith for them, and they kind of had to buy into what we were all about. But, we worked our butts off, like we recruited as hard as we could. We did so much, film and practice and strategy and planning, that, we put everything we had into it. So, it was great that we had the school to back us up for everything that we were trying to do. And, it's an experience I would never change at all.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember my trip out there and our trip, and tell you, USC is a special place. And I was like, I had goosebumps when I was there. It's just, it's an incredible opportunity if you get a chance to get out there and see it. And so now you go from USC, Southern California, beautiful weather, to lovely New England. And the weather's never the same every 15 minutes, it seems like. And but now you're at literally arguably one of the top 3 elite schools in the world. What's it like, taking over the program at Harvard?
I kind of approach it with the same mentality as I had going to USC. It's a school that its name speaks for itself. You don't have to kind of sell the academic piece. You don't even really need to sell the athletic piece. So it's a matter of just finding the right people that you want to have as a part of your program and a part of your vision. But I mean, it is a similar approach of like starting from scratch. I talked to Jerry about the same thing. I tried not to look too much at what they had previously done, because I wanted it to be totally fresh and totally new and kind of new ideas, and, what I wanted to do there, and, what my assistants wanted to do. So, it's definitely a daunting task. Obviously at USC, we didn't have, the constituents that we do at Harvard, whether it's alumni or parents or administration, that kind of stuff. So that truly was from scratch. Whereas here, you're still trying to honor tradition. You're still trying to honor a history, and a very proud history, of Harvard women's lacrosse. And so not change it too drastically, but also still be able to put your footprint on it.
Yeah. I know you're going to do a great job there. One thing too, is I think what's kind of unique too, when you're talking about, coaching in the Ivy League, is it is a little bit of a different mentality. You're dealing with, really smart kids who have so many other opportunities, at their beck and call at a school like Harvard. And, the school obviously speaks for itself, but I think one of the advantages that you have is your background coming from Dartmouth and being an Ivy League player. How has that, helped you in the recruiting process when you're talking to these kids?
Yeah, I think, having gone to an Ivy, I'm able to kind of speak firsthand about the academic requirements and how you can balance that with the athletic, requirements. But, everybody's going to make their college experience different. Harvard is a place where they, it's intense. It's very rigorous academically, but the kids are committed and they're helping each other, and they have tons of resources available to them to be successful. But it's just a matter of if you want to go out and pursue those resources. At other school, it might be handed to you or, mandated for you to participate in some of them. But, at Harvard, and at any Ivy League school, like, you kind of know what you're getting into when you're going through the recruiting process. I've kind of found in my experience, if you want to kind of have that balance, an Ivy League school is going to be able to provide that for you, whether you can balance your extracurriculars in your lacrosse and your academics. And, it's built into the system there. So it's not something that you kind of feel pulled and strained and everything. And as coaches, it's our job to make sure that they don't feel the pressure to be pulled, too much to the athletic side or too much to the academic side. It's
Sure.
a place where the opportunities, it's up to you to pursue them, because there is the knowledge that there is a career after lacrosse. And it's kind of, figure out what you want to be and figure out what you want to do with that. So, the Ivies kind of have that built in, and again, as a league, we've managed to maintain being one of the most competitive leagues in NCAA sports, even with the restrictions we have in terms of time and training. So again, it's not really the matter of, the school, it's the type of person that wants to go to that school and wants to commit to that, that schedule, and who can be like a self-starter, who can do the work on their own when you're not allowed to be with your coach. So
those were the things I was going to ask you. You just used the term self-starter. I sent out a survey a few weeks ago to all the college coaches, and I was actually surprised how many coaches actually filled it out. It was great. About, what are they looking for in their players? When you're out there on the recruiting trail, what's the number one thing you're looking for in a kid?
Yeah, and this is something I've always kind of looked for, but it's like killer instinct or grit. Like, you can't teach a kid to be competitive. You can't teach a kid to want to get better on their own. Like, I don't want to be the person that has to like force you to go do an extra sprint or wall ball.
Right.
That should be something you want to do because you want to get better and you want to make your team better. And those are the types of kids I think naturally are drawn to Ivies because, they've had to work for, their academic accolades. They've had to work for their lacrosse accolades. So, I think it's something that they understand what they're getting into because they understand, not everything is going to be handed to them when they show up. They're going to have to work, just as hard as a kid who doesn't have 20 hours a week of lacrosse to commit to. So, I think it's one of those things that you have to know, like, this is something I want to do. And, when I went to Dartmouth, it was the same thing. It was, I was being like dragged off the field to go do homework, which is probably not a good thing, but, you have to kind of know that about yourself and kind of know who you are before you kind of make that decision.
Sure. I mean, but those self-driven kids, it's that's such a key part. I have to give her a little shout out. One of my 2029s, Ava Savarese, I got a video of her the other day. I posted on our Instagram feed. This kid, she won our wall ball competition. We did a wall ball for a month, and I don't think anyone was within 10,000 reps of her. And she's 2029.
Wow.
And it's just like, you have it, and you get that work ethic. And there's a kid who was doing 3,800 wall ball reps a week.
Right.
As a 2029, it's like, it's the cutest thing watching her, but he's a lefty righty and you don't even know what her strong hand is.
Right.
But that kid's got that work ethic. You just see her from the first time you meet her. It's just, it's fantastic. I love seeing that. When you were being recruited to Dartmouth, what other schools, when you made the decision to go to Dartmouth, what other schools were in the mix for you?
For me, I did, Georgetown, UVA, Dartmouth, and that was pretty much it. Like, I kept it. I did most of my visits because this was a much slower process when I was going through it. But I did my like main junior day visits and everything junior year, and then kind of narrowed it down to those 3 to do my official visits that fall. And that was the year like 9/11 happened, so I wasn't really keen on traveling too much. So 3 was plenty.
Well, we're going to get more into the Georgetown connection. We'll talk a little bit about Ricky Freed. We had Ricky on as a guest the other day, and Ricky was saying some wonderful things about you, and such a nice thing. And, I asked him, I said, what was it like coaching Team USA when pretty much every player on that team is a coach and a lot of them are head coaches too? So he had some great things to say. But what other sports did you play in high school?
I played ice hockey. So I grew up playing ice hockey. I thought that was going to be my main sport.
Really?
Yeah, I actually went to boarding school on the East Coast for freshman year and got so homesick. I grew up in Colorado that I decided to fly home. I couldn't hack it. I was just so homesick. And at that point, that's when I kind of like turned my focus to lacrosse a little bit more. And, everything happens for a reason. It was like one of those things that experience kind of made me, burnt out or just emotionally just overrun by the hockey and the pressure of that lacrosse became like my focus. And I've had some like amazing coaches that really helped me and inspired me. And then I just went from there.
Well, on Friday we had Ross Greenberg, who is the former president of HBO Sports on, and Ross was the executive producer of Miracle. And we just love to talk about, sports all the time. He's done a lot with the NHL and hockey and Showtime, the road to the Stanley Cup. He does all that stuff. But
cool.
We were just talking about youth sports off the air. And we were just talking about one of the specials that he had run. He was the founder of Real Sports on HBO, where they were doing a special on kids getting Tommy John surgery, baseball players at 12 years old.
Oh my gosh.
And I said to him, I'm like, that's just crazy. I said, I was a baseball catcher. And that's also why I became a goalie. It was like, it was easy.
Yeah. Easiest
But
thing. Yeah.
I said, a lot of these kids, I had a great baseball coach, and he would say, don't let the pitchers throw curveballs. They're going to throw out their arms. They're going to blow out their
Mhm.
arms. So I go, my coaches never let these guys throw curveballs. He's like, Dave, you might have played 20 games when you played Little League baseball or travel baseball. He goes, these kids are playing 120 games.
Yeah.
And then now you mentioned hockey. The travel hockey schedule is insane.
Yeah.
Kids who are 12, 13, 14 years old playing a 62 game schedule.
Yeah.
It's a lot of hockey.
It was a lot of hockey, and I played with boys because in Colorado we didn't have any girls, which is why I looked at boarding schools, and I blew out both shoulders, and it was just, I was getting just destroyed. And so that kind of spurred the idea to go over to girls. But yeah, I mean, it was just a ton of time on the ice. Like,
What position were you?
I was defense with the boys, and then when I started with girls, I went to forward or whatever they wanted me to do. But
Yeah, so all three of my girls played ice hockey.
okay.
All three of them played it. So I never had those basketball players. And now I'm always learning. And I was a wrestler, so I wasn't a basketball player either. But I use a lot of basketball now in a lot of the things that we're doing in lacrosse.
Yeah.
And trying to use other sports. And before the virus shut us down, we were having an indoor practice, and in the facility that we're in, they have an indoor hockey rink. And I was watching a hockey practice, and I'm like, I love that drill. I'm going to do that drill in our practice right now. I took the drill, put it into our practice, because it's like, I love taking stuff from other sports. Do you find yourself doing that?
Yeah, actually, we've done that a ton. So Kenzie Kent is one of my assistants, and she played hockey at BC and, lacrosse, everybody knows who Kenzie is. And yeah, like she'll be like, oh, hey, I have this drill, I think we could do it full field or whatever. And it's a complete hockey drill. And sometimes we go over into the ice rink and watch the teams practice, and like multiple times we've kind of walked away being like, oh, let's do that, and again, like hockey is one of those things, it's all about anticipation. There's not a ton of possession. You have to kind of constantly be moving and keeping your head on a swivel. So there's a lot of good parallels that come from watching that. But, obviously basketball, like the defense is like absolutely translates to the field and everything. So we actually have a girl who this year plays basketball at Harvard. She's a sophomore. She asked if she could try out, and basically I had Kenzie do 1v1s on her. Like she was fine defensively. And we're like, yep, you're fine. You make it. Like, we'll see you whenever your season's done. So.
Well, I had to wear my Holy Trinity girls hat on today. My girls gave me, we were right in the middle of our season too, and we were defending state champs. And, we had two kids on the team who never played lacrosse before until 10th grade.
Wow.
And they both started for me, but they were both basketball players. They both played defense. And so it's great. It's great to see that, you're willing to find kids like that. And if they're good enough, put them on the field.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Maggie had just her first practice was the day our season got canceled. So we were like, sorry, this is such a weird.
All right. Now she's got plenty of time to do some wall ball.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, one of the things that too, you were at Dartmouth, you were a 3-time All-American at Dartmouth, which is awesome. And then you guys went to the championship game in 2006, I believe, right?
Yep.
So 2006, I looked it up and I'm like, man, if you had said at the beginning of that day, hey, if we hold Northwestern to 7 goals, we should win this game.
Yep. Yeah. We were in actually the Final Four.
Oh God, it looks like you're rubbing I brought up a tough memory.
No, I mean, they, Northwestern was like a machine at that point. So like we played them in the Final Four in 2005 in the semifinals and lost. And just a total torrential downpour. And it was when there was no boundaries. So like,
oh God.
And yeah, but strangely, like some of those Northwestern players are some of my like good friends now. And there were these twins, the Cussers, who would just chuck the ball out of bounds, but then they were so fast they could run and go get it. So like that was our experience in 2005 against them. 2006 we had the boundaries, so that was advanced. But yeah, they were running the backer that year, and it was like kind of the first time anybody had really seen that. And they were running the lines, and also like that was kind of one of the first time people had seen that. And I mean, we probably had 16 people going to the game total. Like, so it was hot. We played our semifinal game. There were lightning delays in Northwestern's game against Duke that Friday night. So we were delayed. We didn't start warming up for our game until
And Duke was the number 1 seed that year.
Yeah. Yeah. So they went into overtime plus the delays. I mean, it was just a mess. So we didn't warm up till like 10:30. And so we didn't get off the field from our game Friday night until like, I don't know, 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. So we went, and then the next day we tried to have practice and like, run their backer, which was like a horrible idea because it was hot. We had no legs. Everybody was exhausted. So kind of going into that championship game, it was kind of one of those things where, Amy kind of pulled me aside and she's like, you're going to have a really good game. I was like, okay, thanks.
Yeah, no pressure.
Yeah. So, it was
one of those, Coach Amy Patton that we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it was one of those games that we just didn't have the depth to match them. And, they were so well coached, and the backer was a really hard defense to break. And, we just didn't have the depth, and, they just kind of wore us into the ground. I mean, it was a low scoring game. I don't think they scored that low all year maybe, but, yeah, it was pretty brutal.
But you recovered from that, and one of the things well, it's funny. I talk about it all the time. I lost my sophomore year in high school in the championship game, and it was 4 overtimes, and the winning goal wasn't even a shot. It was a pass to the crease.
Oh no!
And the attackman missed the pass, and I was trying to stuff him, and it went over my shoulder. I was like,
oh no!
I haven't relived that a million times. But you
we all have those.
You remember those tough ones.
Yeah, you do.
I'm a former goalie.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten in the cage in a long time. Last time I got in the cage, Jenn Adams tried to take me out by the neck, and she almost killed me. So I try to stay out of the goal now. Now I just play defense.
Yeah.
But then one of the things is your style of play as a goalie. And I love watching it. And with your style, I used to tell my goalies, and I'd say, listen, I want you to play more like Devin does. She goes out and makes those extra plays. She goes out and picks up a ground ball when the ball's on the ground. She doesn't wait for someone else to go do it. She goes and plays defense and will double a girl behind the cage. Ricky Freed said Australia completely changed the way that they played the game and didn't go behind the cage because they were too worried about you coming out and playing defense on them. So what was that? What was that like, being kind of a game changer for a position?
I have to kind of give credit to my dad with that one. He was always like, oh, run it up the field. He had no idea what the rules were or anything like that. So he's like, oh, did you run it down the field and everything like that. So he always kind of pushed me to be aggressive. And then a couple coaches I was
Did your dad play?
No, he was a football guy, but probably not a very good football player. I'm not really sure. Then in Colorado, Susan Stewart, Stewie, she coaches at Colorado College, but she played for Team Canada. She was kind of the same. She kind of was all over the place and aggressive. And I, got to watch her, train with her. And that was a huge step. And, Danielle Gallagher, she was in Colorado at the time and would do the same thing and would, shoot on me and then, expect me to chase the rebounds and that kind of stuff. So it was something that I had a lot of people just kind of instilling in me. And then, the doubling and everything like that, it was kind of one of those things. I just kind of popped out of the cage one day and met somebody at X and they kind of dropped the ball and I was like, oh, that worked. So I think that's when Ricky was like, maybe we should make that part of the defense. So I think we got a little too aggressive with it at times. I think it was nice, to be able to just stay in the cage and stop the ball sometimes. But, it was nice to be a part of the defense because sometimes you can feel just so helpless in there when, you're just trying to do whatever you can to help the team.
Well, I tell the goalies I coach now, listen, they might score some empty netters on you.
Yeah.
You see it in the guys game, which you don't see it as much in the women's game. You see the guys where they'll go into a 10-man ride where the goalie comes out in the ride and, they're pressuring the ball. I'd love to see that more in the women's game. Have you ever thought of going to a 12-woman ride?
Yeah, I mean, at the U.S. level, that was something we did. That was our signature ride. But then at USC, we did something a little bit similar. Maybe not
You had
quite
Gussie Johns in goal, right?
right. So she knew
Another
it.
very
She was able to do it.
athletic goalie.
Yeah. And she, she was in the last World Cup, so she knew it. She was able to do it. But it takes the whole group to kind of be able to do it. And, it's tiring for everybody to do a ride like that. So, I think there's a benefit. I see it in the men's more where they like kind of turn it on and turn it off and things like that. But I mean, it's definitely a good strategy. I just think it's a matter of like when you want to do it and if you got the right personnel to do it sometimes.
Sure. I wore my Team USA shirt for you today.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I had to support.
Yeah, you got to support.
So what was it like playing on Team USA? Getting the call, going through tryouts. I've heard that the tryouts are pretty grueling.
They are. They got more and more grueling the older I got, surprisingly. It's changed so much over the years because when I first was part of it, it was the elite and developmental team. So I was first selected when I was a freshman in college. And so it was elite and developmental at that time. And there wasn't a ton of interaction. There was a little bit, maybe a couple of training weekends. But then it kind of progressed into a tryout system where like you had to go to the national tournament or schoolgirls.
Right.
Put yourself in, and then there would be selectors that walked around and then invited you to the formal tryout, which is then like a 3-day, very grueling tryout. And you never kind of get comfortable. Like you never really feel good. Like for as many years as I was on it, I never felt like safe. Every time they called the numbers, I was always like, oh God, it's hard and they really test you. But I think part of that is, you got to make it through a tournament that you're playing 8 games in 10 days. Like it's hard on your body. It really is. And they want to see who can handle that, who can, play through that. And then also they want to see the chemistry, again, that's kind of the X factor. And, I think one of the teams that always has such amazing chemistry is the Australians. They just know where each other are on the field, and they've been playing together for however long. And they have the clubs in Australia, their system. So like they get to play with each other a lot. So like, we had to find a way to kind of match that because they were always equally as athletic as we were and fast as we were, but we had to find a way to like kind of match that.
And I don't know if you were part of that team or not, but I remember the one game where it was an epic game with USA versus Australia. And I think Jenn Adams had 12 points in the game. And it's just like, she was just unstoppable.
Yeah. I think that was the World Cup before my World Cup, or my first one.
So, you've had the opportunity to play with some of the best players in the world. Are there any players that kind of stand out to you and say like, oh God, these are my go-to players? If you said to me, I got to create a team and my first 3 draft choices are, who would they be?
Do they have to be U.S. players, or could they be?
It could be anyone you want.
Yeah. I mean, Hannah Nielsen is probably one of the best players I've ever seen. Like she could be anywhere, everywhere on the field. Like she could be a goalie if she wanted to be. Like she is so good. So definitely Hannah. Jenn, how can you not pick Jenn Adams? Like she's phenomenal. I still am in awe of her, even like when I talk to her. And I probably have to put some like defenders in there. Alice Mercer is one of the best defenders I've ever played with. She's tall, she's in control. Basically like the whole defense from our last World Cup was some of the best defenders I've ever been with. Like, Alice, Meg Dowdy, Becca, Block. I mean, there was no fouls. Like, I don't think we ever really gave up 8 meters because of fouls, because they were just so clean and so fast and just.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because I know that sometimes on the guys' side, the international game, the rules are called a little tighter. And there's a lot more fouls, and it seems like in the international game. But in the women's game, I was actually surprised at how clean it was.
Yeah, I think there's a big emphasis, and that was something Ricky always kind of talked to us about, was that we had to be the example of what the game should look like. So, cards, mouthing off, anything like that just was not going to be tolerated at all. And, I think that kind of translated to also like how we played. I think he was big on, keeping it clean. They were big on having our shooting percentage be, high, playing fast, moving the ball. So it was always something that was kind of reinforced to us, was make sure that, we are the example. But then I also think the refs kind of, at that level, they're very good, even the international ones. And they kind of just let things go sometimes. I remember like my first experiences in the US system, it was like we had a scrimmage and, people were we were playing England and they're always very tough and strong and physical. And like people are just getting decked and laid out and, the poor attackers.
That's like a hockey game.
Yeah, it really is. And, they don't love Americans. So at least in lacrosse. So it was physical, definitely physical.
But you talk about some of the players and, you surrounded yourself, and luckily for this Harvard team that you've assembled here, you have, some people say it's, one of the best coaching staffs in the country with you, Becca Block and Kenzie Kent. What's it like to coach with those two?
It's great. Like, Becca is phenomenal. She has great ideas. She has really great perspective. She keeps me on track. She isn't afraid to tell me when I'm going off course and we need to come back, or I'm getting too, too wild in my ideas. So she's great at being real. She's great at delivering it. I think she's really great at holding the players accountable and also celebrating them at the same time. Like she's very to the point, but then like has such a great heart too, that I think the girls feel really comfortable talking with her. And then Kenzie, she jumps into practice and everybody's like oohing and eyeing at her, just kind of jogging around. But Kenzie comes with so much knowledge. She has such great ideas. She in games will be like, can we try this? And we literally would just draw it up right there. And, it worked. And, that was all Kenzie. So she's got a really bright future ahead of her, in coaching, if that's what she wants to continue to do. But, I think the three of us together, it's also like just a good group of like chemistry and cohesion. Like, I think we all understand each other and respect each other. And, I think we have fun too, which I think is the most important thing to kind of keeping us all, focused and also just like not burning out a little bit.
When I was coming up to the ranks, I came into pro lacrosse actually much later. It was after me playing a lot of years of club lacrosse, which back then it was literally like our club lacrosse was at the highest level. In some of our games, whether it be with, teams like New York EC and Mount Washington Tavern and Maryland Lacrosse Club and Team Toyota, it was a who's who of players. But then when they saw the MLL, we had indoor. I played to New York Saints, and then I played outdoor for 2 years with Bridgeport Barrage. And I used to kid around to my kids and say, well, listen, you're going to college, get a degree because you're not going to be a professional lacrosse player.
Right.
And then I had to change that and say, well, you're going to college, get a degree because you're not going to be a professional lacrosse player and make money at it.
Right.
Then I would say it to the women. I'm like, you guys don't even have professional lacrosse. And now you do. So we have, the Women's Pro League now, which is exciting. Ricky and I were talking about some of the rule changes in the game that has happened in the women's pro side, which, has literally dripped down to, the college level, which is awesome. The women were the ones who really, pushed for the shot clock and got it done. Mm-hmm. That's been a game changer. I love the shot clock. It's, so much better than stall ball. What are some other changes that, you would like to see as not only a coach, but just really as a lacrosse influencer? What would you want to see in the game?
I could definitely go for not having shooting space and 3 seconds. I think
Ricky said the same thing.
Yeah. I think there could be one. So, let's say we get rid of shooting space and keep 3 seconds. I think that's going to keep the game safe. Internationally, or I guess whatever we played down in Florida at President's Cup, we allowed shots. If it hit a defender, it had to be below the waist. I'm fine with that. I think if you're standing in the way and somebody wants to shoot below the waist, that is, you've made that decision to stand there. So I could definitely do away with one of them.
The only thing about that is, I will tell you, is that 2 years ago, and this is a shout out to Julia Sharp, we were playing and I was in the goal and I told everyone they could shoot below the waist, and she took a shot and it tipped off someone's stick and I didn't have the helmet on and she hit me right in the nose, and she broke my nose for the 9th time of my
Oh
career.
no.
The below the waist didn't work for me.
Okay. I guess that is something that could happen. Then it might be a dangerous shot at that point. But I think, there's a lot of rules that like fit with each other where like one rule can just kind of handle it all.
How about this? When are we going to let the goalie shoot?
Yeah, that's another big one. But I do understand the whole like pocket depth is different, but then like the helmet,
So
like you could just headbutt people on your way down the field, the dangerous equipment or whatever it is. But yeah, I think with the sticks the way they are now, I mean, a goalie stick is probably not much of an advantage. You probably want to switch anyways with somebody if you want to take that shot. But yeah, goalies should score.
Yeah, absolutely. Plus, I also think that if you are in a 12-woman ride, and then if the goalie has the ball and sees that the net is open, that goalie should be allowed to shoot the ball at an empty net.
Exactly. I agree.
So I'd love to see some of those changes. It's funny.
Yeah.
Have you ever played up in Lake Placid?
Yeah, but I was a field player.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fun. What position did you play?
Midfield. Yeah. Whenever I play in those
Not
tournaments,
surprised.
I got to do not goalie. Otherwise I take it too seriously. It's not fun for anyone. So I just
Well, Lake Placid is just like a special place. And the first year that they went and they were trying out with the collegiate level, the 7v7s, and they weren't even doing draws. It was a shortened field, really small. And they were asking me about any rule changes. I'm like, let the goalie shoot. They're like, really? I'm like, yeah, let the goalie shoot. And they're like, we might consider that. Yeah. I'm like, you'd be the first tournament to let them.
Yeah. Well, definitely at like the Olympic level. I think it is now I think, because it is a short field that you could just wing it down there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like a 50-yard field. It's like anybody can kind of take care of that.
Well, that's awesome. All right. So we're going to wrap it up here and let you get going. You are literally, it's like one of the game changers as in your position. You really have, because, it wasn't let's put someone slow takes up a lot of the net in the cage. You were an athlete first. And now you see so many really some of the best athletic goalies are out there. How do you feel about that you've made such an influence on so many goalies out there?
I think it was people before me. I think maybe social media or lacrosse kind of picked up at the right time when I was kind of coming through it. But, there were a lot of active goalies before me. And, I think it's awesome to kind of see more athletic kids in the cage now. I think people are starting to realize like you can use them for a lot of different things. And, if you got an athletic kid in the cage, they're probably a little bit quicker to get to the ball.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense. So, it's one of those things that I'm very happy for, the experiences that I've had and kind of the progress I've had with the sport, but there are definitely people way before me that, influenced me and how I played. And, like I said, my dad had no idea what he was talking about, but he was like, go out and just take the ball from that girl. I was like,
great.
Take it easy.
Great.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So, and, again, that was probably the only thing he ever coached me on in my entire life was to go.
I grew up as a big hockey fan and I grew up with the New York Islanders, and when I was a kid, they won 4 Stanley Cups in a row. And then I started to do some work with the Islanders. I became really close with Mike Bossy, who was one of literally like my childhood heroes and one of the best, goal scorers. And I had to give a speech one time to a group of about 450 hockey players. And I said to Mike, what should I tell them? What would you tell them? And he said, this is what my dad always told me. Go out and make plays. Don't watch plays.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he stuck with me.
Yeah.
Love that.
The one thing my dad also always said was like, don't lay on the ground too long after you get hit. But that was more like for hockey.
Yeah. Get up right away.
Yeah. Exactly.
I know it was hard for you because with my girls, my oldest Victoria, when she was playing, she was playing up through high school and she was playing with the boys on the high school team. Yeah. And there would be boys who would take runs at her just because she had a ponytail sticking out.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And as a dad, it was like, your dad hairs go up on those. And then and Kate was a goalie. And so, she didn't care. Anybody could shoot on her.
Right.
She was a great goalie. But moving forward, we're going to end with 3 specific questions. So the first question is a question from our prior guest. Now, our prior guest was Ross Greenberg. Now, just so you know, Ross is a brown guy and he's sarcastic, but this was his question for you.
Okay.
He said, I want to ask Devin that how does she feel as the head coach of Harvard, knowing that every other team in the Ivy League only wants to beat Harvard?
Oh, I mean, it's obvious. Like, everybody knows that. I think probably having been an outsider, that was our mentality too. But yeah, you've got Harvard on your chest. That's a target. And, regardless of the rest of the league and how strong their programs are, their schools are, Harvard has a clout and people are going to try to knock it down. And so, yeah, I mean, that's totally a given. We know that. We talk to our players about that all the time. And
so your thought is bring it on.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you have to kind of bring it on. So, yeah, that's fine.
That's awesome. So now you get to ask a question. Now, here's who you're asking the question of. Okay. Tomorrow, we have Anson Dorrance. I don't know if you know who. Yeah. Anson Dorrance has won 21 national championships as the head coach of UNC. So
I'm following him.
We're pretty pumped to have him on tomorrow. So what is your question for Anson Dorrance tomorrow?
Ooh, because I've read his books. So
he's got a brand new one out too.
I probably would ask him what he finds is the best recruiting tool that he's ever used. And it might not be legal anymore, but what his best recruiting tools were.
I love that. Well, let me ask you right now, as a coach who's recruiting, what are your what are you looking for in players? When you're out there, what's helping you? How does a kid get on Devin's radar?
I can only kind of speak generally, but I think the biggest thing is, like I said, killer instinct, grit. Like, are you competitive? Are you going to go for that 50-50 ball? Are you going to make plays happen? Or are you going to wait? That's, and are you going to do the little plays, like take the charge in the midfield? Like, that's not an easy thing to do. So stuff like that, like, that's the biggest thing. Like, if you have that killer instinct, you're going to get noticed probably by anybody.
I love that. So the last question. So what we always wrap up here, and the whole concept of what we're trying to do here with the Elevate Academy is, make a difference in kids' lives, and, taking, your experience that you've had and, letting people know about it, hearing your story. They can read up on it. You could, check you guys out on, obviously, on Instagram and Harvard on the Facebook page and all those things. But what's the best piece of advice you ever got, and who gave it to you?
Best piece of advice. Yeah, I mean, probably the piece my dad's saying, like, don't lay on the ground for too long after you get hit, is kind of relates to everything. Like, there's going to be obstacles on the field, off the field, and you can't let that beat you up and put you into kind of a funk, is kind of always how I've interpreted it, is just make sure that you get up and find an answer, or you challenge back. That's always, for me, the biggest thing, because, you're going to have challenges everywhere, and obstacles and failures, and you're going to get punched in the face, and it's just a matter of how you respond. For me, is kind of the biggest thing, and kind of like, all right, well, what's the next step, next play? Like, you can't dwell on those mistakes or like those past experiences and let them create fear. Like, that's my biggest thing.
I love that, because what I think, that message, our country needs to hear that message right now.
Yeah.
We really do.
Yeah.
From the standpoint of, it's like, hey, we got knocked down, but what's amazing is, America's always been about resiliency.
Yeah,
and,
definitely.
And that's some of the stuff that we're seeing right now. So, the best thing is, I would say, is for you is, you are just an absolute leader in the lacrosse world. Keep being a leader, do the things that, you can do to make a difference. Keep changing lives, because you're doing an unbelievable job of it.
Well, thanks, Dave.
Well, listen, Devin, have a great day.
You too.
Good luck with all your teams, and we can't wait to see you guys get back out on the field.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks again. Talk to you
All
soon.
right.
See
Bye.
ya.